Hello, welcome to Soulprint Intuitive Tarot for August 31st. So first, I'm sorry this one's running a little late. I went to upload my video and ran into some technical glitches. And so everything's good, but we're just running a wee bit late. So this reading is about Canadian politics come this September. And for those of you wondering, there is a US Trump This Week video coming out shortly after this one gets released. So, Canada. So as of, I believe this morning, the COVID stats are like around this. Approximately 128,000 people have been infected, and this is coast to coast to coast. There have been 5.5 approximately million tests done. There are 5,100 active cases and 9,117 souls have been lost. So, I guess we're doing okay. Right? I mean, they certainly flattened the curve and got things settled down. Unfortunately, right now in BC, Alberta, and Manitoba, as schools are set to reopen or are reopening, depending on what province you're in, those three provinces are experiencing an uptick in the counts. So, it's a little concerning because you would hope that the counts would be as low as they could possibly be before the kids go back to school. But apparently, the governments in those provinces have not quite got this thing as under control as they would like people to believe. So, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about politics here in Canada. The Conservatives have elected a new leader by the name of Erin O'Toole. Him and Trudeau are pretty much contemporaries. They're about a year apart. O'Toole, I think, is born in December. Trudeau was born in January. So, I guess there's a balance there, I guess. So, let's see what Spirit has to say about Canadian politics. Come on down. I have a question. This up a little bit. Okay. So one more quick shuffle. Canadian politics, September, Canadian politics, September, Canadian politics, September. Okay, so this one wanted to sit at the bottom. So we'll see how that ties in. Okay, Three of Cups. Okay, so for the most part, things have gone relatively well in terms of the COVID response. The new Conservative leader is, really anxious to sort of go after Trudeau because of the money being spent and all of that, the money that was just shot out to the Canadian people. I mean, it was just generous. It was about keeping the economy going, even though the economy had shut down. And it was about keeping people safe and in their homes and being able to afford their homes. So about 88% of Canada really approves of how the Liberal Trudeau government handled the COVID disease. But for some reason, the Conservatives seem to feel that that would be a good thing to attack them on. I'm not quite understanding, but there you go. In any case, the Conservative Party has a new leader, He is not as rigid and narrow-minded as Andrew Scheer was, okay, who was also, he had dual citizenship with America, but didn't think Canadians, would need to know that. That's what we were dealing with there. So in the Conservative Party, there is sort of like, okay, let's get this kind of back on track. Let's see what we can do. Let's get this thing moving forward. So that's kind of what their strategy is. And like I say, I've sort of tapped in very gently to Aaron O'Toole. He is, he's very ambitious and he's very driven. But I don't get strong sort of corruption attitudes from him or that kind of energy around him. So, do I think he's going to be like a standout conservative leader? No, I don't. But frankly, he's better than Andrew Scheer. So that's going on. Now, we also have something coming up in September called a non-confidence vote. So for those of you who are not sort of in a parliamentary system, a non-confidence vote happens when the opposition, and of course we have several here in Canada, when there's somebody decides that they have lost confidence in the ability of the current government to run the country, or the prime minister to run the country. Now, there are days I bet the Americans would think that would be a fabulous thing to have, because what that non-confidence vote does is it will trigger an election if Trudeau loses the confidence of the Parliament. Now, in recent history, as far as I can remember, there has only, and by recent I mean 30 or so years, there has only been one successful non-confidence vote, and that was because there was a backbencher who was kind of not, he was new to the game, if you will, and he got his yeses and nos mixed up, and he voted the way he should not have. He voted kind of against what his party was doing, and what that did was it created a non-confidence vote by one vote, and that was enough to trigger an election. I don't believe that Trudeau is going to lose that non-confidence vote. He's not pleased about it coming up. He really does see it as sort of slimy politics. But, there was the WE scandal, and which, from what I can figure out, he really didn't have a whole heck of a lot to do with. But that's being used sort of as leverage against him. So that's going on. But like I say, I really don't see a loss there. All right. Definitely looks like a lot of people are very concerned in Canada. They're concerned because it's September. They're concerned because kids are going back to school. They're concerned because the cooler weather is starting to arrive, and that indicates that we could be heading into sort of that fall winter surge. And so there's a lot of concern. But overall, and I'm not speaking for every Canadian, of course I'm not, but overall, people have managed to sort of keep afloat, and they have managed to kind of keep the wolves from the door. And so even though there's a great deal of concern and worry, and a lot of, from what I understand, a lot of the additional help, government help that is flowing out, is a lot of it, from what I can understand, is extended until like January. So again, trying to ride things out over that fall surge when it comes. So that's sort of the dynamics, I guess, of what is going on. All right. I was wondering about this King of Swords. So with the Fool coming up to sit on top of it, what you have is Canada continuing to take a very strong, firm approach when it comes to Trudeau, or sorry, when it comes to Trump, because Canadians overall really recognize that, unfortunately, at this point in time, because of the President of the United States, Americans are sort of dangerous for us. And so as much as we like and enjoy going to visit our southern neighbors, and as much as they like and enjoy coming to visit their northern neighbors, the borders are not going to be opening up anytime soon. There's really still going to be quite a firm response to keeping them closed and trying to keep Canadians safe. So, and because it's Canada, it's not going to be blatant. And in fact, many of the people working with the US administration are going to make Trump feel like this was his idea and he's brilliant, because that's sort of what happens when you have a prime minister who sat on and grew up at the knees of another Canadian prime minister. Because, of course, Pierre Elliott Trudeau is Justin Trudeau's father. So, he's a little bit more savvy of political games than I think people realize or appreciate. And he also has a very strong administration around him. So I don't see the dynamics between Canada and the US getting much worse, but they're definitely not going to they're not going to loosen up. And of course, Trump did put that tariffs on aluminum, because somehow all of a sudden Canada again is representing the enemy of the States. But of course, Canada just replied tit for tat. We put on our own tariffs on US products coming in. So, this is sort of the game that gets played. So that I see kind of continuing, but not in an angry or an aggressive way. It just feels like it's sort of going to coast along, certainly through the months of September. At this point, I really believe that governments all around the world are kind of doing what they can to just stay out of Trump's sight, because they are hoping, except for a couple countries like Russia, they are really hoping that Trump ends up being a one-term president. So at this point, they're really not wanting to sort of antagonize him. It's almost as if it's better to just let him go along his little foolish way. So there's definitely concern about the whole return to school thing. It looks as if ultimately it's going to go better than people are expecting or anticipating. Now, does that mean that in 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, schools don't start shutting down or doing more? The ones that are opening up to students don't seem to, go back to some online classrooms. But it looks as if it's not going to be quite the disaster we think it is, because at some point there's going to be a partnerships that are going to start making effective choices. So what do I mean by that? I mean, maybe the provincial governments, the premiers, are going to start listening to their Board of Education people. Maybe not their education ministers, because of course their education ministers are the same party, but listening to the school boards saying, listen, you haven't supplied us with enough. You're making it incredibly difficult for us. And so it looks like there's going to be some adjustments or accommodations made going forward. particularly it feels like in the sort of elementary school level, sort of elementary and middle school, it feels like the younger kids, there's going to be some shifting of sort of the way things are approached there. So, and this is the thing. The summer is as insane as it has been. Frankly, that's been going on since January, February, March, but it's moved very quickly. And so there's a sense of, certainly in Canada, that we had a very short reprieve, from COVID. And there is a sense that the Canadian government is doing what they need to do to keep people floating. But there is anxiety ticking up because of, again, the cooler weather is starting to roll in. And we all know that there's supposed to be some concerns come, the fall and winter. So you've kind of got that going on, but it really does feel like the Canadian government has done a really good job kind of keeping people's fears and anxieties at least in check to some degree. So part of that was, again, the daily news briefings that went on from Trudeau, and then they were followed by briefings from every province. So people felt that they were really, really being kept well informed on a national level because the briefings by other provinces were carried nationally. So Canadians had a fairly good sense of what was going on border to border to border. Now, or from sea to sea to sea, I guess. And there was a lot of sort of effort made to be firm, but to be very careful to acknowledge the sacrifices and to acknowledge how well people were doing and how much the government appreciated the way they were social distancing and the way they were, self-isolating. So going into the September month, it feels as if we're going to be able to kind of ride, I guess maybe over some of the concerns, or we're going to be able to move more smoothly through some of the fears and anxieties. Absolutely, there's going to be a surge, and there's going to be a need for people to, continue to be very cautious and continue to protect themselves. But the interesting thing is, as things have loosened up, and I can only speak for Alberta because that's where I live. But as things have loosened up and opened up, first of all, when we shut down, the shutdown wasn't as extreme. And so some areas were just able to keep on growing and going along. And that, of course, helps sustain things. But as things have opened up, there really has been an uptick in people being very, very conscientious about wearing their masks. Like I have to say, there's more people running around wearing their masks now than there was certainly in March and April and May. So, again, that kind of thing is going to be very helpful in terms of, trying to keep the resurgence under control and trying to keep things moving along and balanced. So this is interesting because, as most of you know, the Ace of Swords is my card for Biden. And so the way oh, look, and there's the Queen of Swords as the next cup. So look, this is how I'm reading it, right? There's a victory for the Biden-Harris ticket because judgment has been passed. And because of that, things are going to become much more balanced, much easier, less frantic and scary going forward, certainly in terms of our relationship with the United States. And so that's going to be very helpful, because that in and of itself is going to allow down the road the borders to open up a little bit and kind of get that back and forth going between countries. So that looks like kind of it. You've got, they're going to be okay. As a country, we're going to get through this, and it definitely looks like so there's going to be, like to the victor go the spoils is this kind of a card, and that's the energy of it. So it feels as if, ultimately, Canada's going to be able to sort of come through this, not without scratches and bumps, don't kid yourself, but at least in a place where we are able to recover. The economy has taken quite the hit, but slowly but surely that is also going to open up and start recovering. So, really, really good news coming for Canada. I guess it's absolutely not as horrible as it could be. So I was talking, I just want to share this with you because it's kind of cute. I was talking to a client of mine the other day who lives sort of southern US. And we were talking about the Canada-US relationship. And, and he was saying that he never in his lifetime thought that the US would really not be welcome in Canada. And then he says, but we do make fun of you a fair bit, can't help it. And I said, that's okay. That's okay. Because Canadians make fun of you. We say that we are like a candy store that lives over a crack factory. So I hope you're laughing. Don't be taking offense. But it kind of is true, right? Canada is that, calmer, more polite, less racist, less aggressive place. And by and large, Canadians love being Canadian. Okay, that's it. The US one is going to come out shortly after the release of this one. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, take care and be well. And we'll see you really, really soon. Bye-bye.